Hold it right there. We need to talk. My name's Roy Dugosh from Bandera, Texas. Born and raised Bandera. I was born in the house that I live in back in the 1870s when that house was built. I was born in 1949. I'm the past president of the Bandera County Historical Commission. Had a great tenure of 10 years as being president. Learned a lot about my family and the history of Bandera, Texas, and the history of the Old West. But I'm pleased to be able to be here today to help you to relate to some of the Old West and how it was. Today, we're going to take a look at the early days of the Old West. And you can't do the Old West without talking about the Texas Rangers. My grandpa, great-great-grandpa, was a Texas Ranger. On my mom's side, there was Texas Rangers. Back in the early days, they weren't called Texas Rangers. They were called frontiersmen. Later on, the governor of Texas declared all of those frontiersmen Texas Rangers because they did the same job. If you were a Texas Ranger for one day, you were a Texas Ranger for life. So today you're going to see a kind of a going back in history to the days of the Old West. I'm here at a little ghost town here in Blanco, Texas, and I'm with the Bandera Cattle Company Gunfighters. And we're going to do some gunfighting today and kind of maybe take you back in the days of the Old West, of when we had bad guys, good guys. This was good times back then, but it was hard times. So anyway, we're gonna do a couple of skits for you. Gonna do some action. Gonna show you a little bit about this town here. Pretty neat town. Kind of takes you back. A lot of nostalgia here. It's the good old days, the good days of the Old West.
Hey, you townspeople, you ain't never seen anybody before in the jail? I ain't gonna be here long, so take a good look. It ain't gonna happen, okay? I'm gonna be out. I think my buddy's gonna bust me out. You'll see. I'm gonna rip her head off if you don't put that gun down.
Put that gun off her neck, I'm gonna blow your brain from here to that church. Now.
I ain't gonna be in here long, I'm telling you. Ain't happening. Yeah.
Hello there, my name's Bob Bailey. I'm out here at the Buggy Barn Museum, Pine Moor Studios. We dedicated a Texas Ranger Frontier Battalion reenacting building. I'm with the Old West Texas Rangers, and we do living history about the Texas Rangers. I'm also a member of the former Texas Ranger Foundation. My wife and I, we go around with a Texas Ranger memorabilia display showing guns and badges used by the Texas Rangers. I've been doing this for about 30 years and love representing the Texas Rangers during reenactment. The Texas Rangers are elite police force for the state of Texas. They were formed by Stephen F. Austin in 1823. Today, present day Rangers, there's 176 Texas Rangers, 4 of those being female. They're quite an elite group, as everyone knows. As portraying Texas Rangers in the reenactment, let me go back to the start of the Texas Rangers. Again, they were formed in 1823 by Stephen F. Austin when he was selling off plots of lands to individuals. He had trouble with the Comanches, the Mexican banditos were giving all the settlers trouble, so he took it upon himself to hire 10 men to range the frontier. That being said, they took care of the problem. They let them go back to their regular work, lawyer, blacksmith, whatever they were.
The Bandera Cattle Company, we take pride in being period correct. My gun is a New Army 1858 replica. This would have been the gun that would have been here when the West was settled. The gun that would have been in Blanco, it had been in Bandera. This gun would have gone out to West, to California. This is the gun. Everything that we do, our boots, our spurs, the hats, everything, suspenders, everything is period correct with the late 1800s. In my badge, this is actually an original Texas Ranger badge. Like I say, the cattle company, we're the official reenactors of the Texas Rangers. We do all of their shows, all of their reenactments, all their special events. So we're proud to be here today to be a part of this dedication.
Let me tell you about where we're at today. We're here in Blanco, Texas at the Buggy-Born Museum. Dennis Moore has a Buggy-Born Museum where he has over 180 stagecoaches, wagons, buckboards, something to see. Right behind it, he built what is called Pine Moor Studios. This is an 1880s town that they built. Every building is authentic. The interior is authentic reproduction items, and this town is where he's had a couple of movies made, quite a few commercials, and music videos. At the end of this town, straight behind the church, in front of the church, he built a Texas Ranger Frontier Battalion office, which we dedicated today. This is very unique for us reenactors to preserve and represent the Texas Rangers. He built this thing. Inside it's got a jail cell, safe, desk, everything that you would see in a Frontier Battalion Texas Ranger office. This is something that we come out and teach the history of Texas Ranger, teach the history of Texas.
Hello, I'm Kelly Scott. I've been up here in Bandera since 1960. I hitchhiked up here from Bayside, Texas. And that's a long ways for a little old 17-year-old boy to go, but I've always heard about Bandera, and I wanted to come to Bandera. All right, my first chuck wagon that I ever had, this was in 1963. Because like I say, on all these dude ranches I worked, I would drive their chuck wagons, I'd drive their stagecoaches or buggies or whatever they had, I drove. And I'm not working for the dude ranches. I work part-time for them and I shoe their horses because I've been the horse shoer here for over 50 years. But so I got this little idea that I'll start renting my own chuck wagon out for these parties and parades and things like that. And so I did. And I was asking Hondo, I said, Hondo, you want to sell one of them chuck wagons? He said, well, what I'd really like is a deer rifle. He said, yeah, I'll sell you one. But he said, I would trade you a deer rifle for one of them chuck wagons. And so my mother, she lived down on the coast at Bayside on Copano Bay. And I'd go see her once a month or so. But I'd also go to Corpus. There was a hawk shop down there, a pawn shop, that sold guns, holsters, saddles, In those days, you could buy a nice little pistol for $20, $10, whatever, and shotguns and rifles and all this kind of stuff. From $15 to $25, $30, you could buy a nice gun. Well, this one guy, he recognized, because I'd buy holsters. Man, they always had holsters in there. And I'd buy them for $3, $4, $5, and I'd bring them back and sell them to them boys doing them gunfights at the Mayon. Anyway, this one guy, he had 2 Army rifles. He wanted $25 a piece for them. Well, they were bolt action. They was old World War I guns, and I did not like that because, and they were good shape, but I didn't like them because there wasn't nothing cowboy about them. They were just old bolt action, big old heavy guns. And so he'd come down to $15 or whatever, and I said, man, I just don't want them. So he said, tell you what I'll do. He said, if you'll buy both of them, I'll sell them for $11 a piece. So I figured he'd probably give $10 for them, and they probably was stolen. And so I said, okay, I'll give you. I bought them $22, and they even had bullets with them and everything. Big old long, I think they was 8mm, 7mm, 308s, I don't know, but big old long, like a 30-06 bullet. And so I'd had those guns, and Hondo was telling me about he'd like to trade for a deer rifle. And I said, well, look, I got these Army guns, and I said, people hunt with them. I got the shells and everything. He said, that way, and Hondo knew about this gun. He said, yeah, I'll swap you one of them. So, okay. So I didn't have a trailer then, but he had an old trailer that he hauled the stagecoach on, and we hauled it out to my place. And I was looking at the wagon, and it said, sold by Charles Shriner, Kerrville, Texas on it. And the chuck box, inside of the chuck box, it was made out of National Rifleman boxes, because guns used to come in boxes with rope handles, and this box was made out of those things. And it was made just exactly like the box here. And so anyways, I kept that wagon forever almost. And I built, every time I'd make another wagon, that was my pattern. I'd make it look just like that, because that was a real wagon. And that wagon, he'd got it from Ralph Mitchell, the guy that owned the Cabaret. And Ralph Mitchell had a ranch over by Concan, and that wagon had made it to Concan somehow or another, pulled by horses or mules, and just sit there on this ranch. And he gave it to Hondo, and Hondo swapped it to me for that rifle. And that's what got my chuck wagon business going. And then, like I say, I've made 40 different ones, made them all look just like that, but I wouldn't necessarily make the whole wagon. I just fix it up, put bows on it, or make a chuck box that all looked like that. And like I say, I'm sitting on my 40th one. And now they wasn't all mine, it was different people, but I probably, 20 of the wagons out of the 40 were mine, and I'd sell them when I'd do a party or a parade or something, somebody'd want it, I'd sell it. And like last year, I sold 3 of them. And so that kind of got my chuck wagon business started.
All right, are we on live now? But let's just jump on to all stuff like you get asked over and over. What is a cowboy? Would that burn? What's anything? I mean, a cowboy is every damn thing. There's cowboy in everything. Well, there's cowgirl too. But I want to get off of this subject because it's all political, and I don't want political in this. I want my community, Bandera, to become and stay greater but the same. And that's hard to do. Very hard to do. We want the same backdrops. We want the same nostalgia. Yet we don't want to lose our tradition. And we want to grow. And we slow-minded as hell. about somebody changing us too quick. We accept it, but it's going to take more than a day or two. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to pick up some of this paper and I'm going to go over with some stuff here in a minute about I am an international trail boss, recognized in the Stampede in Alberta, Canada, by Bob Thompson and some other prominent names I could list or say. And they accepted the, I reckon, Freedom Ride is the name of the ride that went from the courthouse in Bandera to the Stampede in Alberta and opened the rodeo. Well, I wasn't nothing but a parade cowboy, but that's all I wanted anyway. After 2,500 miles, you know, you kind of don't want to go set a bull or something, you know. But anyway, no, it was an experience that I did for my community. It was a poor boy operation. I had some silent backers, and I had folks in Bandera that would give me 25 bucks. It'll help get you on down the road for going. It was not a dream. It was, you get back to being a cowboy now, you know. Cowboys kind of mouth off once in a while. Well, I mouthed off. And I want to read something. Mary wanted me to read something else, but I want to read this. But first, I want to cover one little subject matter. Why is Bandera the cowboy capital of the world? Governor Perry endorsed my ride to Canada. Legislation passed it and put it in writing that Bandera is the cowboy capital. You ought to seen all the folks. I rode through Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, all of them. And they got the publicity out that we were the cowboy capital of the world. I got challenged. I mean, bucking a horn, Cheyenne, I mean, all of them. I was just humbly, well, I was just downright. You may have more cowboys, but we started a little bit earlier than you. Well, I don't know if we started earlier or not, but they didn't know it. Anyway, Mansfield Park, Wharton, everywhere was a gathering for cattle back in the 1800s and in the 1940s, and so we had some good professional cowboys. I didn't know them. They was older than my grandpa. But I know people like James Duff. I know people like Kelly Scott. I know that they're all cowboys, one fashion or another. It nearly tears me up. So they said, "Are you a real cowboy?" Well, you break them, you train them, and you shoe them, and you ride, and you do. When I grow up, I'm going to be one. But I want to recite this, and this, Mary and Cindy, Mary Alice and Cindy and me, and I give them the idea, and they help me write it, and I like it. But this is a definition of a cowboy through a child's eyes. Well, they were a long way from home when they passed through town, and Mama never planned to let that old car break down. The mechanic told her, "Yep, we can get her fixed, but it won't be ready till about 6:30. He said, "Why don't you take your son and go through that door? We have a great old general store. The soda fountain's run by a real nice lady. Folks around here, they just call her Aunt Maddie." Mama took his hand and said, "I'll be right here." She set him down on a stool and ordered him some frosty root beer. He was a-playing with his straw when his eyes got real wide, watching that cowboy ride up and tie his horse outside. He watched as a man ambled to the door, followed him with his eyes, jumped down to the floor. He looked to his mama to see what she would think, but she just smiled, gave him that wink. The boy lost any sense of fear and danger. He just wanted a closer look at that stranger. He said, "Mister, why are you dressed that way?" And the man said, "I wear these clothes every day." And the man said, "They're not just a costume, they're a part of me. I'm what folks call a cowboy, you see. This hat keeps the burning sun off my head, and my boots, they're the last thing I take off before bed. My spurs tell my horse to keep up the pace, and my bandana keeps the dust from the road off my face. That saddle rifle keeps dangerous critters away, and my knife helps me prep the catch of the day." Well, the boy had some questions. He wanted to know more, and the two sat down for some real cowboy lore. He listened intently to story after story, and the cowboy, he felt like he was in his glory. He said, "We have to preserve the ways of the Old West, and the heart of a child will do it the best." Then the cowboy said, "Son, I gotta go. But before I leave, there's a couple of things more. When you grow up, be the best you can be, and never shirk your responsibility. Protect those folks you love every day, because that is true cowboy way." The boy, he thought for a bit, and he replied. Then he looked up at the cowboy with a heartfelt pride. "Mister, I'm not sure what I'm going to grow up to be, but I know there will always be some cowboy in me." Anyway, you want to keep running? Well, a cowboy ain't perfect. He don't even try to be. He likes dancing. He likes to celebrate, I guess you could say, a terrestrial life. He likes to share with people that like sharing. If you're a taker, you ain't gonna be welcome to that campfire. If you give too much, you won't be respected either. You gotta balance. And I don't care, I've rodeoed and day worked and $50 a day, furnish your own horse, own trailer and everything, and it's hard. But you always had each other's back. You really did. You wouldn't admit it, but you'd show it. And I don't want to end this with a happy note or a sad note. I'm just saying there's a cowboy in everybody. I've got a lot to say, but I guess the ride was to Canada was a feather in my hat, because I said the only way I wasn't going to make it was I'd have to be dead. That was the only way. Cowboy praise have a lot more than you think. He's not religious and go to church every day, but he takes his hat off, nod to God and Christ, and then he goes about his next day's work, provided the sun comes up. I'm trying to make a conclusion out of this story, but there's so many others out there that's got some of the same stories, that's lived it for generations before my little butt hit the ground. We need to reflect on them. And thanks to you, Roy, and you, Dakota. I won't say those bad words, but I will say one thing. In Scripture, the Lord give you the right to love Him. It's a promise. It's a covenant. And I can only say one thing. I know that. And now that I know that, I can love Him all He wants. And there ain't a damn thing He can do about it. He can go back against His word. Remember the word.